Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Shay. I do content about horror movies, horror media, horror games. We're here with the first horror game, and theme parks occasionally because I live in Central Florida and I feel like it would be a crime not to. If you're not new here, welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back. It's been a while since you see my face. Sorry, I had to hit the audio again. The jumpsuit is not accurate because I don't have the Pony Express patches. But as you can see, I am Anya from Mouthwashing. I hope you liked that little skit in the beginning. I don't know how it's going to turn out because I was filming that while I was getting ready for this video, but I hope you liked that little skit in the beginning. If you weren't able to tell from the way I'm dressed, the title of this video, and everything surrounding this, we are getting ready to talk about mouthwashing. My camera is crooked. Hold on, let me fix this. It's been a while since I've done a video in person. My last video was my mouthwashing gameplay, and let's just do some housekeeping real quick. First of all, if you can't tell by the sound of my voice, hopefully I won't lose my voice. I'm sick, which is why this video has been delayed. I've been sick for like a week. I went to MegaCon a couple weeks ago, and I'm pretty sure I picked something up there. Con crud, I guess that's what they always call it. I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's a sinus infection because really the only symptom I have is like a really runny nose and my voice keeps vanishing like in thin air. And occasionally I cough or sneeze, but it's like very occasional. So yeah, if I sound a little crappy or even look a little crappy, it kind of adds to the fact that I'm supposed to look like I've been shipwrecked in space. But if I sound or look a little crappy, that's because I'm definitely sick. Also, my last video, mouthwashing gameplay, let's talk about it a little bit. I was really excited to get it out, and I'm not proud of the way it came out. Not because I don't like mouthwashing, because obviously we're about to talk about mouthwashing for God knows how long we're about to sit here and talk about mouthwashing. But because of the fact that my computer decided it didn't want to handle this game. And it's really strange because I used to record Sims videos on that computer and never had a problem with lag. Never had a problem with my system lagging while it was recording. All of a sudden, it's telling me that it cannot handle it. And I don't have a lot of stuff on that computer. So I'm really, really confused, and I'm working on fixing it because I do want to do another gameplay in a couple of weeks, and then eventually do another, like, breakdown video. I'm not going to say what it is yet, but that's why mouthwashing had been delayed, and that's why this video has been delayed along with me being sick. So we're here, we're going to talk about mouthwashing, finally, yay! I'm so excited to talk about this game and to get it out of my system because I do love this game. I love this game a lot. Oh, let me show you guys what I got at MegaCon. If you know anything about mouthwashing, this will mean a lot to you. I'll be right back. So, there wasn't a lot of mouthwashing stuff at the con. It's still a fairly new IP. There might be a little bit more next year, who knows. But somebody was selling some really cool prints, so I grabbed this beautiful babe. You can't really see it, but it's a Pony Express ad featuring our girl Anya. Yeah, sweater's pretty close, isn't it? Like, yeah. And then I also grabbed this because I thought this was pretty sick. Mouthwashing print as well. And again, and this is Curly. If you know the game, if you know what we're about to talk about, you think this is pretty cool. Those will be going up soon. I just have to get more command strips. I am currently out of command strips. So yeah, that's what I got when I went to the con. And the only thing I really spent money on, aside from a comic that I bought to support an artist. So yeah. And I also got a DVD from a YouTuber that I'm going to be covering on this channel at some point. So exciting stuff. But let's talk about mouthwashing because I'm excited, and also because I don't know how much time I have before my energy dips way too low and I am not able to continue recording. So I'm just keeping it so real with you guys because being sick, I didn't have to do this, but I wanted to. I really did. So first off, let's talk about how I heard about mouthwashing. So in December, I almost said last month, but last month was January. In December, I was kind of going through a little bit of a weird time, and I was sort of bed rotting one day. If you know what that is, you know what that is. And all of a sudden a video popped up from an account named Allie Dreamer. Shout out to Allie Dreamer. I will leave a link to her video on mouthwashing in the description. First thing I want to say is the video popped up and the thumbnail was what caught my attention because this person has beautiful hair. Like, their hair is gorgeous. I loved their hair. So I was like, oh my gosh, I want to watch their video just because their hair is nice. I don't know why that was the thing, but Allie Dreamer, if you see this, your hair is beautiful. Just want to let you know that. Great hair, great hair. So I watched the mouthwashing video with zero context to what the game was even about. I had heard of the game last year when it came out in September, but I had heard of some of the content in this game, and I didn't really dive any deeper into it, mainly because I wasn't in the headspace to take it in. But after I watched their video on mouthwashing, I kind of went down a rabbit hole, and not only did I watch Berlizzi's gameplay on this, but I subsequently watched other people's gameplays on this, and of course I was eagerly awaiting Corey Kenshin playing it, which he eventually did, and watched his, and I watched his soul die as he played this game. And then I also watched so many analysis videos because I was so obsessed. I'm gonna move this hair. I know it's accurate to Anya to have like the hair in your face, but I just feel like that's gonna bother me when I'm editing. I'm gonna be like, move that hair. Yeah, sorry, I don't look like Anya anymore, but I didn't look like Anya to begin with, let's be honest. Anyways, yeah, so I just kind of became super obsessed with this game, and obsessed with the lore, and obsessed with the story, and obsessed with the characters. It really took over my existence after I finally sat down and watched it, and I decided, you know what? I have not had the opportunity to cover a horror game on this channel. So what better horror game to start off with than Mouthwashing? Because it's a fairly short game. It took me, the first time I played it, because I played it twice, I recorded it twice, but you guys only saw it once. It took me about 4 hours to beat it the first time. And the second time that I played it, it took me about 4 hours, but it was over the course of several days because I had to break it up because of work. So it's a fairly short game. 4 hours is not a long time for games. A lot of games, it's, you know, it could be anywhere between like 10 to 20 something hours. Sometimes it's days. Obviously, if you want to get all the achievements and all that stuff, I didn't worry about that this time around, but yeah, it's a fairly short game, and I figured it's a good game to start with to analyze, and also to just really talk about how much this game affected me and affected a lot of people. I'm sure if you're watching this and you know about the game, it probably affected you too. So yeah, I definitely wanted to kick off my channel with this game. But before we get into what the game is about, I do want to issue a trigger warning. For those of you who know what the game's about, you know what the game's about. But for those of you who don't know what the game is about, I'm going to put on the screen what one of the biggest things that this game talks about. I'm not going to say it, but you should be seeing it right now. If stuff like that bothers you, I would just skip this video altogether, because this is a heavy game. There are not a lot of video games that I've played that are more psychologically stressful than like just stressful in the fact that it's like intense gameplay. So that's definitely one of those things where I want to talk about that. So what is Mouthwashing about? Now we're going to go into the entire story in a few minutes here, just to give you sort of a quick overview of what Mouthwashing is about. Mouthwashing is about a crew that is lost in, that ends up lost in space, and it's sort of what ends up happening to the crew through the eyes of the player. And it gets pretty gnarly. Let's just say that it gets pretty gnarly. And this is the basic plot. It's developed by Wrong Organ, and they actually had a game that they came out with before this called How Fish Are Made, which is a prequel. I did not touch on that. I did not play that one, but it's a prequel to this game. And this game has just it took the internet by storm when it came out, and it's a game that people are still playing for the first time and people are still talking about. So you know you've done something right when you create a game that people are talking about months and months later. It is available on Steam if you want to purchase it, if you want to check it out yourself. It is available on Steam. Before we get into the main story of this game, I want to offer a little bit of disclaimer. You're going to see some footage from this game. Not all of it is mine. Because my game was lagging so badly, I obviously did not get the best footage. So I was looking up a no commentary gameplay video from a creator named Zodranite. I hope I'm saying that right. So I use their footage. I'll have that linked in the description, and I'll also have like the source whenever I use that footage. I used that footage for this because my footage isn't great. I am going to try to use my footage as much as possible, but I definitely know for Swansea speech, because I had to cut that entire segment because it was just a black screen. I definitely know for Swansea speech, I'm going to have to use their footage. So, you know, do with it what you will. So, without further ado, here is my first gaming review ever, so let's get into this creepy critique. The story of Mouthwashing is told in a non-linear fashion, so if it feels like the story is disjointed as I'm telling it, just know it's supposed to be this way. I had considered putting the story in chronological order for the sake of my sanity, but I feel like it loses its surprises when it's told that way. So please, just bear with me. I promise this will all make sense as the story unfolds. The game opens with a screen letting us know the details of the crew's mission. Pony Express, long-haul space freighter, Tulpar. Crew, 5. Planned shipment duration, 382 days. Elapsed transit time, 147 days. A message pops up on the bottom of the screen saying, "I hope this hurts." From there, we cut to the cockpit of the Tulpar. The character we're in control of gets a message that there is an obstruction the ship is about to crash into. We are instructed to steer to the left to avoid crashing into it. However, the game only gives us one option: steer right. Once you steer to the right, towards imminent doom, the computer lets us know that this action will cost our crew some money out of their paycheck. Clearly, our character does not care, because the only thing you can do after searching through the cockpit is grab the emergency override key. You have no other choice but to sit down, place the key in the slot, and push the red button, solidifying that you are now going to crash. After you do this, you'll turn and find the door behind you is now open. You begin to traverse the hallways of the Tulpar, only to find that they're essentially looping until you reach a dead end and are forced to turn back. "Oh, hey little guy. Fancy meeting you here." You keep doing this until you run into a second, more deformed Polly statue. You'll start to hear a baby crying as the ship becomes more dilapidated until you open a door and find this. The screen glitches, and you're thrown into the aftermath of the crash. You find out you're a character named Jimmy, and you're stranded in space after the captain of the ship, Curly, deliberately crashed it. Jimmy is now taking up the mantle of being the captain, since he was the co-pilot before the crash. You're sitting at the table with your crewmates, Swansea, Daisuke, and Anya. You'll notice that someone is missing. Don't worry, Curly is still alive. You just haven't gotten to meet him yet. The crew is deciding on whether or not to open the cargo hold to see what they're hauling on their freighter. It seems like the only person who has any objections is Swansea, who doesn't think their dire situation of being stranded in space is worth not getting paid for breaching their contract. Nonetheless, he's outvoted, and the crew decides to go ahead and open the cargo hold. Anya reminds us that it can only be opened with a code scanner that only the captain has access to. Since we're the captain now, it's up to us to find the code scanner. But before we do that, we need to go and meet our poor, indisposed former captain, Curly. And he ain't looking too good. As it turns out, Curly took on the full brunt of the crash in the cockpit. It was a miracle that he was even alive. Anya asks us if we would be willing to give Curly his painkillers because the sound of it nauseates her. Off the bat, you can sense some tension between Anya and Jimmy. Jimmy is oddly hostile towards her, while Anya seems to try her best to placate him. Despite this, Jimmy tells Anya he'll give Curly his medicine. You have to grab the painkillers and then click on Curly. Not so fun fact, you can get an achievement for opening and closing Curly's mouth repeatedly. I did this on my first playthrough, so I didn't get it on camera. After you choose the medication, we get this cutscene.
Oxycoded extended release capsules. The good stuff. 3 painkillers. Hold still, yeah? I don't like this any more than you do. You know what they say. Pain is how we know we're still living. I can't bear to listen. You and me both, sister. Excuse me, sorry. Here we go.
After that awful scene, we head back to the lounge to find Anya doubled over in pain. We get this exchange between her and Jimmy.
Hey, Anya, what's up? We don't have a whole lot of painkillers left. But you still want to keep. Why do you think he did it? Doesn't matter. What answer would make you feel any better? I have to believe that our worst moments don't make us monsters, Jim. I have to. Even in his case. He tried to take us all down with him, Anya. The way I see it, there's 2 reasons to keep him alive at this point. Guess the important bit is that we all agree to it, for one reason or another. I'm still feeling nauseous. I need a minute.
Now that that's over, it's time to find the code scanner so we can break into that cargo hold. We head back to the cockpit, stopping at the utility room to talk to Swansea first about how the room is filled with emergency foam, and Swansea's trying to break through it so that he can possibly find anything to use to help repair the ship. But he won't let us in there, and he won't give us the axe either. After we find the code scanner, we head back to the cargo hold to find the whole crew gathered there, eager to see if they've been hauling anything that might help them survive for a bit longer. We get the hold open only to find boxes and boxes of... Before we can find out what's in the cargo hold, we are taken back to 7 days before the crash, and we're now playing as Curly. He's doing a psych evaluation with Anya, who tells him that he's good to go. She then laments that she only has one eval left, Jimmy's. She seems to not really be thrilled about having to speak with Jimmy, so Curly tells her that he'll do the evaluation for her. He then hands us a note from Swansea that says we can't expect him to perform miracles. From there, we exit the medical room and head over to utility, where Jimmy is standing outside. He remarks about how something entertaining is going on inside of the room.
And Pony Express said they don't provide onboard entertainment. Feels like there's always something broken in that room. Tulpar's starting to show her age. Past inspection, right? Shouldn't be an issue. Plus they added Daisuke last minute. Didn't account that there'd be 5 of us now. I really should have made a bigger stink about that. Maybe you should intervene. Or we could just close the door. Your call.
Once you enter, you'll find Daisuke trapped in the emergency foam, while Swansea looks on in annoyance and disappointment. Before we go any further, the song that plays here is an absolute bop. Like, it's so good, what did they put into this song? Swansea expresses his frustration that Daisuke tried to fix a vent that is pretty much unfixable, a vent that could have killed him in the process. Keep that in mind. You have to use the code scanner to get the axe and chop Daisuke out of the foam. After some more back and forth, you find Jimmy standing in the doorway. Curly informs him that he offered to do the psyche eval on him for Anya, teasing him about a joke he made about cartoon horses that made her uncomfortable.
Was it really a joke though, Jimmy?
Jimmy agrees to meet you in the cockpit, and you head off. But before you reach the cockpit, you slowly plunge into a nightmarish world. It starts with the staircase looping again, as the music starts to slow and distort until it eventually cuts out unceremoniously. Eventually, you reach a set of pipes that just drops off into a void. Walk off those pipes, and... you plunge into a dark red sea below. Some people theorize that this is blood that you're swimming through, but let me know what you guys might think. After a while of walking through this water, you start to see ladders popping up, only the ladders are crooked. This does have symbolism, but we'll cover that in the next part. Soon we start to hear sirens as emergency warning signs pop up in front of Curly, much like what we see in the beginning of the game. After that, we see a blinding white light, which is either the sun coming up or an explosive detonating. And then we are trapped in an all-white void with only the open door of the cockpit in the distance. We head towards it and find Jimmy sitting, waiting for his evaluation. We sit and begin.
You can't just make something up for this. It's not like these evals ever go anywhere when we get back. We'll power through it. Have you been able to complete your mandated tasks as co-pilot efficiently and to your fullest capacity? Let's see. I'll just put good for that one. That's all of them. Done and done. How are things otherwise? Off the record. I like it. We're in control here. Didn't think you'd ever take to being a freighter pilot as well as you have. What with how you struggled back on Earth? Sure, all I ever hear is how great of a leader you are. Honestly, it's kind of annoying. So, what is it? How come it always seems like you're standing on the edge of a bridge with your feet in cement? Lately, I've just been thinking, is this enough? Should I just stay here because I've been successful at it? A good long-haul freighter captain. And that's bad? That's what I'm saying, it's not. But it's terrifying. I think, am I figured out? Is this all I'll ever be? Or do I take the risk and try something new? Even if I'm bad at it. I guess I get it. You reached the highest rung on this ladder. So now you're thinking you might be on the wrong ladder altogether. Still a long way down from the top no matter how you look at it. While I'm still climbing and climbing. Something like that. But hey, you know I believe in you. Here. On Earth. Doesn't matter. Huh. You should write that on the psyche val.
The conversation is interrupted by an incoming message from corporate. Jimmy hastily exits the room while we go and investigate. But before we're able to see what message we've received, the game glitches again and we are dropped back into the cargo hold. Red, jumbled up text flashes on the screen, and we begin walking through the boxes until we reach a TV showing various clips, each having some significance. Now, forgive me if I get any of these wrong. These are just my interpretations of them. Yours may be different, or things may have been confirmed otherwise. The first clip is from a cartoon about the joys of capitalism and how great it is for the worker. It explains the benefits you get for becoming part of the system. The corporation that the crew works for, the Pony Express, is pretty much the embodiment of all that is wrong with capitalism. Let's take it back for a second. If you look around the ship, there are posters everywhere, and this is what each poster says.
Polly says, rise and shine. Sleep is the best rest after a long day of work. Earn that rest. Don't overdo it or fall behind. Do not indulge in over 5 hours of rest. Polly says, lend a hand. Teamwork is the soul of success. When you have completed your tasks, always check on other tasks. HR complaints about poor team synergy may result in collective punishment. Polly says, giddy up, Galaxy. Punctual delivery is our pride and promise, no matter where you are. Late deliveries will be docked from personal credits. Polly says, don't be daft. Proper preparation prevents accidents. It is your responsibility to keep yourself and the crew safe. Medical expenses will be docked from personal credits.
It seems that the way this company operates is that if one person screws up, everyone gets penalized. Whether it's with disciplinary action or worse, a cut in pay. And oftentimes, this is what people at the bottom of the ladder have to deal with in corporate settings. A company that does not care about them while also telling them they can have all these benefits. The cartoon highlights the benefits a person can have from joining corporate America, but ends with the main character getting hurt. Though this is supposed to be a comedic moment, it's not really. Despite having everything a person can want, the character is still harmed by what he thinks he should have. After that, we have a clip of a black hole in the vacuum of space. Black holes open up to devour everything in their path. This could symbolize the actions of the player in the beginning of the game, initiating the crash and taking the crew down with us. Then there's a clip of a cartoon explaining atoms. Keep this one in mind. They talk about how powerful and strong atoms are, while also mentioning how they all have to work together to be productive. This hints at how one small problem can ruin something for everyone, which is a running theme in this game. Then we have a clip of some men in a butcher shop chopping up meat. I think this just symbolizes the crew being set up for slaughter, but this can also be hinting at an event that happens later on in the game. We won't talk about that right now, just keep that in mind. We then get another cartoon talking about isms. It features a group of men arguing before one man comes in and says he has the answer to all their problems. That's a drink called isms. It's basically another capitalist propaganda cartoon trying to convince people that capitalism is the solution they've been searching for in life. Then we have a video of a skeleton dancing around as he falls apart slowly and then puts himself back together on loop. I won't go into too much detail on this one as I'm not quite sure what that could symbolize. Finally, we are thrown into an ad for mouthwash. The ad glitches and we're back in the cargo hold with the rest of the crew, where we get the reveal that we've been hauling not medicine, not food, not even tools or supplies that could be useful and help repair the ship. No, the crew of the Tulpar is hauling boxes upon boxes of mouthwash. Dragon Breath Mouthwash. Do you understand the name of the game now? The crew reacts in different ways. Jimmy is very visibly pissed off. Daisuke is confused and conflicted. Anya feels the hopelessness of the situation, and Swansea? Well, Anya points out that the mouthwash has too much sugar in it, so it couldn't be used as a disinfectant, to which Swansea takes the bottle to inspect it. Realizing it has a high alcohol content, Swansea begins to drink the mouthwash. Desperate times, I guess.
14% ethanol. I suppose we'll smell good at least. That's right, kiddo. You can bet your ass on that.
What are you doing? Stop that!
Woo-wee! Oh, shut up. I'm just an old codger taking care of his dental hygiene. You hear that? That's the sound of 15 years of sobriety popping like a cyst. A glorious, magnificent, red-hot cyst. Good riddance and cheers.
Anya is distressed over Swansea and possibly Daisuke deciding to drink the mouthwash, and we have another glitch taking us back in time and putting us in Curly's shoes. We are now 5 days before the crash. Curly has news to break to the crew. If you look in his inventory, you'll find the news from corporate, but you can't read it. The only hint you get is text saying, "After all this time, this can't be true." You make your way to the lounge, only to get the jump scare of a surprise birthday party from the crew.
Surprise. Surprise! Look at your face! Gotcha. Cheers. Wow. What's the, occasion?
We only get one communal birthday party per trip, right? So we can have it whenever.
Only one person can really be surprised birthdayed per trip. We did Swansea last haul, remember?
No way! I can't believe I missed that!
You were next on the list, so congratulations. Hate to say it though, your duties have to extend to even your own birthday party.
You're the only one with clearance to make the cake. The recipe is there by the machine. Hop to it, Captain! You heard Jimmy. As Captain, you have to make your own birthday cake. You head into the kitchen and follow the instructions in the cookbook to make your own cake. After bringing it to the crew, Jimmy notices something is wrong with you, and...
That's all it said on the report from management. We will receive the paycheck for this delivery. I don't know any more than that. Pony Express finally kicking the bucket, huh? What a joke. And we're the punchline. I don't have any savings. They can't just do this, right? Pony Express was one of the last man-crew freighter companies. The writing's been on the wall for a long time. When did they tell you? Earlier this week. I was instructed to wait until we were closer to the haul destination. But I can't keep something like this from you all. So I guess you got what you wanted. Without the guilt. Jim. If I had known, I can go back to my, how'd you put it? Struggle of a life? Anya never got into medical school because she's, well, let's be real. And how many employment years Swansea got left in him? Daisuke will be fine. Mommy and Daddy have him covered, so there's that at least. But you? Headed for bigger and better, right? I'm just working on my life being a place I don't have to escape. That's what I was trying to tell you. Nothing more. We're the ones you're trying to escape. Leave the dirt behind now that your boots are clean. That's not what I meant. It is what you meant. You just couldn't frame it to yourself in the way that kept you as the hero. Abandon the crew but remain the model captain. Unbelievable. What am I supposed to do? Let's have some cake. Props to the Twilight crews of the Tulpar. Props to our captain and his new prospects. You cut the cake in a very peculiar motion, almost like you're sawing the cake in half. The screen glitches again before we are thrown back into 2 months after the crash. You can hear the sounds of Curly's pained moans echoing through the ship. It's actually quite eerie. When you go to the medical room, Curly is there alone and very obviously in pain, meaning Anya likely didn't give him his medicine again. You go to search for her, only to find her in the cockpit talking to Swansea. She's clearly upset about something because when she realizes you're there, she responds with surprise and covers her face. Swansea looks on angrily at you, still holding the axe that was given to him by Curly earlier. Anyways, you grill them a bit as to why they're talking so late, but both Anya and Swansea skirt past this. Anya seems to be crying, a fact that Jimmy acknowledges, but she just tells him it's nothing. You ask Anya if she gave Curly his meds, and she says it slipped her mind, meaning you have to sit through another awful scene of Jimmy force-feeding this man pain meds. And this is by far the worst one of them all. Come on, stop with the noise. Damn it. I know what everyone is thinking. The way they look at me. What could I even say? And then, what would she do? Damn it! Here we are now, me in the driver's seat. Thanks for that. Open up. I hope these make you feel better. Again, the game glitches, and this time we are plunged into a nightmarish version of the Tulpar with a jumbled mess of letters on the screen that we can't understand. We see Curly sitting at the table with a cake in front of him and sit down to speak with him. Sometimes you can only get the subpar stuff. That's what makes the really good stuff, well, good, right? Why bother? Hey, we all tried to escape. didn't work for any of us. I've thought many times, is this what peace feels like? And is it good enough? If I'm being real, it certainly isn't the best. So all I can do is try and make my life one I'm not trying to run from all the time. Sometimes I'll be promoted, buy a house, fall in love. But other times I'll just have some awful cake with my friend. Right now, that sounds pretty brilliant, yeah? So, if you'll do the honors. Right. Well, let me go find a knife.
The game instructs us to find a knife, so we set off in search of one. If you linger a bit, you'll notice that everywhere in the ship is filled with bottles and bottles of mouthwash, like the crew blew through the entire cargo hold. You can only go to one place, the cockpit. Once you get there, you'll find the axe planted into the captain's chair. Pick up the axe and head back to the lounge. You'll notice that the game instructs us to feast. When you get back to the lounge, the music cuts out as we see Curly's eye has taken over the LED big screen. Curly lays on the table. We approach him, and the only action we have is to take the axe and use it on him. However, the game glitches again, saving us from feasting on Curly's fleshy carcass. For now. We are back again to 2 months after the crash. This time, we're in the cargo hold. As we leave the cargo hold, we find Daisuke face down on the floor. Don't worry, he's not dead, just very, very drunk. Unfortunately for him, it seems like alcohol brings out his depressed side as he laments about his mom calling him a slacker. She found him this internship to give him a sense of purpose. He asks us to take the mouthwash from him so he doesn't drink anymore, and then asks if he can just be alone. We listen to him before heading off to find the rest of the crew in the lounge. Swansea is absolutely tearing up the dance floor, like full on getting his life, while Anya sits at the table contemplating drinking the mouthwash. If you go to talk to Swansea first, there's another banger of a song playing, just to let you know. The soundtrack for this game is pretty damn solid, honestly. We head over to talk to Anya, who again is jump scared by Jimmy's presence. We have a conversation with her about whether or not she is going to drink the mouthwash, but she says it would just make her sick and wouldn't fix anything. She then mentions that there's actually more painkillers on board the ship in a storage locker just outside of the lounge. Of course, it's somewhat foamed up, but we might actually be able to get through it if we strike it at the right angle. But first, we have to get the axe from Swansea. We head over to where he's turning up in the club. Swansea's clearly coping with the circumstances by getting wasted and partying on the ship, but there's an obvious hint of malice in the conversation that hints that Swansea may know something about Captain Jimmy that we as the player don't know yet. Eventually, Swansea relinquishes the axe by smashing it into the screen, cracking the permanent sunset the crew had been graced with since the crash. We take the axe and then head to get the meds. Once we get into the storage locker, Anya congratulates us on a job well done, but then asks us once more if we can give Curly his pain medication. This is actually one of my favorite moments in the entire game. As Jimmy crashes out, pay attention to the HUD.
It's find the code scanner. Then figure out the door code. Get the axe. Chop up the foam, but not too much. And best of all, give Curly his fucking medicine.
I don't know, I just love how the HUD is following everything that Jimmy says here. We of course have to give Curly his meds once more. Don't worry, it is indeed the last time this game will subject you to this horror.
I don't think I understood the pressure you were under before. And you tried to tell me. Our worst moments don't make us monsters, huh? You were a good captain, Curly, and you'll be one again. I'll get us both through this.
After this, we cut to 6 hours until judgment. What? Well, we're in the cockpit. We lock the door and suddenly Swansea begins to scream that he's going to kill us. We search the cockpit trying to find something to secure the door. If you open the inventory, there is something that is seemingly deleted from it, and the caption just reads, "My hands won't stop shaking." Eventually, you find a rope and a metal pipe. You secure the door when Swansea finally busts through the glass and tries to open the lock. The game glitches again, and we're back as Curly 2 days before the crash. And I'm just going to let this scene speak for itself because it's one of the best and most gut wrenching interactions in the entire game.
Yeah, can't sleep. I know how that is. I just toss and turn. Or stare at the ceiling all night. I actually kind of like the nighttime window screen, if you can believe it. So I just come look at it sometimes. If you look really, really close, you can see there's a dead pixel in the upper right corner. That so? Nope, don't see it. In the back of my mind, it's always there. Now I'll go bonkers looking for it. Cheers. I don't think it ruins the illusion, though. It's peaceful, but maybe I'm just used to looking at the bigger picture. How many days of transport do we have left? Let's see, off the top of my head, around 237 days. Just under 8 months. Hey, why do you think Pony Express put a lock on the medical room door but not in the sleeping quarters? I suppose for the same reason they put a lock on the cockpit. Safety.
Let's unpack the scene just a bit, shall we? Anya is sitting up in the lounge looking at the nighttime window screen. She mentions to Curly that if you look real close, you can see a dead pixel in the upper right-hand corner. Curly tries to find it, but is unable to. Anya remarks that it's always there in the back of her mind. She asks Curly how long they have left of their trip. When he calculates this, she fires back with 8 months, as though she had already figured this out in her mind. She then asks Curly why there's a lock on the cockpit and the medical room doors, but not one for the sleeping quarters, to which Curly replies that it's for safety reasons. However, this has a darker implication. We'll come back to this later. We go back to playing as Jimmy, and now it's 4 months after the crash. Daisuke approaches us, clearly freaked out about something. When we speak to him, we find out Anya locked herself in the medical room. We head over there with Daisuke, only to find that Anya intentionally locked herself in the medical room. If you pay attention to her speech patterns, you can tell that something is off with her. She mentions that this is the best decision she's ever made, hinting that she's thinking of, or has already, done something drastic. Jimmy tells Daisuke that they need to find a way into there, and Daisuke mentions the broken vent, but of course shows hesitation in actually going in there. For one, Swansea still won't let anyone into the utility room, and the other, the busted vent is too dangerous to traverse for anyone. Jimmy doesn't care. He decides they need to confront Swansea and get into utility by any means necessary. When you find Swansea, he's looking worse for the wear, covered in vomit and sweat from the looks of it. He's also majorly slurring his words and pretty much reached the acceptance stage of grief, where he knows they're all going to die and figures he might as well just face it for what it is. And obviously, he still will not let you into the utility room. But before we can make any decisions, the scene morphs into 8 hours until judgment, and we see Daisuke lying on one of the medical cots, covered in blood and scratches, and groaning in pain. It's clear that something terrible happened to him. Jimmy panics, promising that he's going to fix everything, but Swansea is not having it. He then asks if they still have the last bottle of disinfectant that was in the medical storage locker. Jimmy hesitates before informing Swansea that they used it to make him the cocktail that knocked him out. We haven't done this yet, but we will soon. Swansea, of course, snaps at us and tells us to go find something to use as disinfectant. Now, you could head straight for the cargo hold and start searching for something to clean Daisuke's wounds, but I recommend going to the medical room first because you get this trippy scene. It's clear that there is something in the left-hand corner of the room that Jimmy doesn't want to see, so he just blocks it out, distorts it. If you talk to Swansea, he tells you to go and look somewhere else. Then you can head to the cargo hold, but when you get there, it's blocked by a headstone. If you look closely, the headstone has Daisuke's name on it, spelling out his soon-to-come fate. The headstone instructs you to use the code scanner on it, and when you do, you are transported to a staircase. Follow the staircase down, and soon other staircases will pop up in every different direction, before we're thrown into the cargo hold, tasked to find a bottle of mouthwash, but warned that we're not alone. A blind beast, aimless and restless. You can't run from it. This is probably the most traditional horror game section in the entire game. You are tasked to be as quiet as possible as a giant purple horse chases you down. It can't see you, but it can hear your footsteps. You have to follow a path of blood to find a bottle of mouthwash, but sometimes the horse's abnormally long body blocks the pathway and you have to double back. This section is pretty tense. You can only stay quiet by staying completely still. The good news is you won't actually die. You'll just have to replay this section over and over. Once you retrieve the mouthwash, you're immediately sent back to Daisuke, where you're instructed to use it on him. Unfortunately, the mouthwash makes things a hell of a lot worse and causes him incredible amounts of pain. I mean, I can't imagine pouring mouthwash into an open wound feels good. The game glitches again, and we're back with Daisuke trying to figure out how to get into the utility room. This is when Jimmy convinces Daisuke that they should make a drink with the isopropyl alcohol to give to Swansea that will knock him out so they can take his keys. Daisuke has reservations about this, mainly because he respects Swansea and doesn't want to go against him. But Jimmy plays into his desires and tells him that it's the only way to save Anya. They go off to the lounge and concoct a cocktail that will put Swansea to sleep. Of course, Swansea thinks the drink is terrible looking, but still chooses to drink it anyways. He takes the drink and then passes out almost instantly. Daisuke freaks out about how Swansea's head bounced off the floor. Honestly, can't believe he didn't have a concussion after that. But Jimmy reassures him that he'll be alright. We take the keys from Swansea and go into the utility room to find that.
Wait. Whoa, it's like barely foamed up at all. Hey, it's those things. I've never been inside one. What are they called again? Cryostasis pods. Oh yeah, these things are far out. Totally sci-fi. Oh, it looks like this one still works. How long can these things even keep you frozen? 20 years. I can't believe Swansea managed to clear all the foam from here. He didn't. What? Think about it. Swansea never let you work with him on breaking the utility room foam wall, right? No, it needed to be handled delicately. He said I have way too much athletic strength in my arms. I would have just torn right through the foam. I was like, damn, makes total sense. Bummer. So I've been in charge of the kitchen instead. He said it's next level critical to keep stock and organize every day. He had me double, triple, quadruple check everything like all the time. Right, of course. And he never told you he'd gotten in here? No, but look how busy he must have been. There was never any foam here. And Swansea has known the whole damn time. Just taking a load off before the sun finally sets on this party, huh? That boozed up bastard has been biding his time until he could save himself. Would getting in the pod really mean you'd get rescued? 20 years more of a chance to get found. I'd take those odds over our current situation. Not like this, though. Not by lying through my teeth while waiting for everyone else to die. No, man, that just can't be right. I'm sure there's a reason. We'll ask him about it when he wakes up. We'll deal with him after.
As you can see, the emergency foam barely covers any spots in the utility room. They mostly affected the cryostasis pods, only leaving one fully operational. Jimmy asserts that Swansea kept him out of the utility room in order to keep the working cryopod to himself, which Daisuke doesn't believe. But time is of the essence. We have to rescue Anya from the locked medical room. We find the broken vent, which seems to be even more busted up than it was before. Daisuke is again hesitant to use the vent to get into medical, but Jimmy convinces him once more, pandering to his desires to make the crew proud and show his value. Eventually, Daisuke agrees and goes into the vent. You can walk around the room a bit, but eventually... Ugh. Anya? What did you do? We cut back to Curly one day before the crash. He's looking in the medical room for a gun that Anya hid. Once he realizes he can't find it, we have to go and find Anya. We head to the cockpit where we find Anya on her knees, devastated and upset. This conversation is a bombshell, so I'll just let her speak for herself.
Us being let go isn't a reason to hurt yourself. Anya. As our nurse, you never got psych evals. I should have thought of that. You could have come to me if you were feeling stressed. What would you have done Anything. Anything. You, the crew, are all my responsibility. I told you so over and over, yeah? I'm not going to hurt myself. You know the gun is in a safety case I can't open. But I hit the case itself. Tell me where it is. None of this has to be on our performance log. We'll figure it out together. I'm pregnant. You're... what? Who would you... Captain. I told you. Listen to me. We can fix this. I've known him for a long time. I'll talk to him. I know you'd never give me the gun to protect myself. So the least I can do is make sure he never gets it either.
Through this conversation, we learn quite a bit, actually. We learn, for one, there is a gun on board that only the captain has access to. Again, more than likely for safety purposes. We also learn that Anya is pregnant. Who is the father? None other than Jimmy, the character we've been playing as. But if you've been paying attention this entire time to the game, you would pick up on something even more sinister. Anya always seems to be startled or almost frightened when Jimmy walks into the room. She doesn't want to give him his psych eval because he makes sexual comments that make her uncomfortable. She tries to placate him or boost his ego after the crash, and the most important bit of information is when she asks Curly about the doors in the sleeping quarters not having locks on them. Why did she ask that? Because Jimmy assaulted Anya. He assaulted the only woman on board the ship and got her pregnant. There's a reason Anya doesn't want him to have the gun. She recognizes how dangerous Jimmy truly is, but Curly, because of his connection to Jimmy, fails to see it. And we'll see how that affects the rest of the crew in a few moments. We return to 6 hours until judgment. Daisuke is lying still, slowly succumbing to his injuries. It's clear what has to be done, though it pains us to do it. Jimmy tries to convince Daisuke that he'll be okay, but Swansea sees the writing on the wall. Lamenting how Daisuke was just a damn good kid trying his best, he raises the axe. He tells Daisuke to close his eyes as he puts him out of his misery. It's a powerful moment. How we go from hearing Daisuke's labored breathing to just radio silence is masterful, and keeping the act hidden from us as viewers watching it from the outside of the door really makes it more powerful. This was the part of the game I actually cried at. It also parallels how when you ask Swansea for the axe earlier in the game, he slams it into the sunset on the window screen. He refers to Daisuke as a ray of sunshine before killing him. His positivity and kindness was something that Swansea admired in him, and he wanted to give Daisuke the chance to live his life. But Jimmy took that from him. So Swansea had to take out the sunshine. He had to end the life of Daisuke. Jimmy completely loses it when Swansea does this, screaming at him that no one gives him time to make a plan and think. Swansea challenges him, telling him essentially that they're all going to die, and revealing without saying that he was saving that cryopod for Daisuke. He also hints that he knows about Anya's pregnancy and her assault. He tells Jimmy to get in the pod if that's what he wants because he has no desire to try to live any longer. Our next task is to get the gun that Anya has hidden. This will take us into the medical room, where we will get to see exactly what happened to Anya. I have to be careful with my words here. Anya made a very permanent decision. A decision she cannot take back, and we get to see the aftermath of it. I will genuinely say it is so damn heartbreaking seeing her in this state. It legit upsets me. It also explains why earlier, when we were looking for something to help Daisuke, the side of the room Anya was lying on was glitched out. Jimmy legitimately did not want to look at what Anya did, what he drove her to do. But obviously, Jimmy doesn't care about Anya. He didn't even respect her or see her as a person. He's here to get the gun. You crouch down at the table where Curly's body is to see a case in the drawer. You'll need to use the code scanner in the locker in the cockpit to find the code for the case. Once you do, you gotta go back to medical and open up the case to retrieve the gun, and here we have one of the most chilling moments involving Curly in the entire game. He's clearly laughing because the one thing Anya did to protect them was hide the gun. But now, Jimmy had it. Whomever was left was not safe. As you go to leave, Swansea charges at you, screaming your name before we're back to Curly on the day of the crash. We approach Anya, who just hid the gun from where we retrieved it. She tells us that she told Jimmy that she's pregnant. He didn't respond either. He just walked off angrily. Anya laments that she doesn't want him on the ship anymore, to which Curly tells her he'll talk to him and they'll work this out. We go off to find Jimmy and find him outside of the cockpit where this exchange between him and Curly takes place.
I can fix this. What do you think will happen when we get back? We can figure all of this out. You and me. All I ever hear is how great of a leader you are. God, it's so annoying. But now? What do you think will happen now when we get back? We'll fix this together. Everything you and I worked for in our lives, accomplishments, changes, none of it will matter. You've gotten through difficult situations before. This time won't be any different. Work through it, one day at a time. It's not just me, is it? You were supposed to be the one who had everything under control. You said so yourself. The ship, this crew, everything that happened here, this was your responsibility, Captain. That is what you'll be hearing for the rest of your life. Or this can all be remembered as a tragedy. Despite what must have been the best efforts of its acclaimed captain, the Tulpar crew was never found. No one survived to tell the tale. You're standing at the top. Feet in cement. I get it now. Right? Right.
Note that this is the first and only time we will see what Curly looked like before the crash. Jimmy pats him on the shoulder and assures him that he'll take care of it before walking into the cockpit. And this is what happens next.
Jim, tell me you didn't. I should have... I didn't... What the hell did you do?
As you can see, Curly wasn't the one who crashed the Tulpar, leaving them all stranded. It was Jimmy all along. Jimmy crashed the ship in hopes of hiding his crimes from not only Pony Express, but from his community. Jimmy put them all at risk to protect his name. Jimmy condemned the crew to their subsequent fate, and worse, the crew died believing Curly was the one who tried to kill them all. They will never know the truth of their new captain's actions that put them in this hellish situation. It's a secret both Jimmy and Curly will take to their graves. We cut back to Jimmy 1 hour before judgment. He's carrying Curly in his arms to the lounge. When we get there, we see the corpses of our fallen crew sitting at the table just as they were at Curly's birthday party before the crash. We're instructed to put Curly's body on the table like he is the birthday cake. Suddenly, everyone springs to life, showing Jimmy's cracked mental state. They praise him and ask him to cut the cake. Jimmy gets up and cuts off Curly's leg, placing a piece of flesh on everyone's plate. See, I told you we'd get to the cannibalism part.
A lot of people struggle to put food on their plates, but that wasn't enough, right, Captain? The lowest rung of your ladder is our highest. Till it was all swept from under your feet. Life isn't even worth living at the same level as us. But I forgive you. All of us do. I won't give up on you, even like this. I believe in you. We're going to make it through this. Sometimes we thrive, travel to the endless reaches of space. But other times we just have to accept days like these. You taught me that, Curly. Let's eat. Let's survive.
At this point, the jumbled text we kept seeing pops up, only this time it's clear as day. Take responsibility. Jimmy is finally cracked, and this entire sequence shows just how broken he truly is. We start off heading to the medical room. When we get there, it's in a disarray, and the only place to go is down the vent in the floor, the same vent that claimed Daisuke's life. Hanging above the vent are Swansea's keys, the same keys we knocked them out to get. You jump into the vent, landing hard. As you walk through the vent, you come across a tool chest with the pieces from the game Sorry on it. We didn't touch on this, but there's a Sorry board in the lounge that has significance. The piece on the floor represents Daisuke and how he met his fate. Keep walking and you'll eventually see Daisuke standing in the vent, but when you try to approach him, he'll turn and walk off. The lights will turn red and a pink hibiscus flower will take Daisuke's place. This is significant not only because of the hibiscus flowers on Daisuke's shirt, but also the fact that pink hibiscus flowers represent friendship, symbolizing Daisuke's friendly and trusting nature. After walking for a bit, we switch out of this vent and approach a sticky note that reads, "No turning back now." If you try to turn back, it'll reset you to face the sticky note. You literally have to walk backwards away from your responsibilities. Jimmy will do anything to not take responsibility for the lives he ruined with his actions. As you walk backwards, you'll see a pink light on the floor. If you go closer, you'll notice it's Daisuke's hands in a circle around two things he owned, weights and a Game Boy. And of course, the hibiscus flowers. Don't look too long though, or you'll get reset. Eventually, you will come to a red sticky note that has the word responsibility written on it. Again, you walk away from your responsibilities. Then we end up in a hallway that loops around until we fall off and land on a door. Opening that door has us falling through a seemingly endless void of poly posters. We hit the bottom, which is another door, and we go through it. We're now shown another vent that has axes surrounding it, beckoning us in. You crawl through this vent until you spot a pink hibiscus flower. Once you turn around to go in the other direction, the axe comes flying at you and hits the wall. After that, you drop out of the vent and in front of Swansea, who is tied up in a chair. The gun is on the floor at his feet. You pick up the gun and have to shoot it. Now, you don't have to actually shoot Swansea to trigger this next part. Lots of people do, but there's no benefit to it. Maybe it's more in character for Jimmy to shoot him, though. The next part changes the game a bit. We're now in a graveyard, and the goal of this part is to shoot Swansea 3 times. I'm not gonna lie, I initially struggled hard with this part. I don't have footage of it, but it took me a good 30 minutes to figure out a good strategy. There is low visibility because of the headstones, and Swansea is unbelievably fast. He appears just as quickly as he disappears. There's no penalty for dying. Actually, there's a reward if you get killed by Swansea 10 times called the good ending. Oh, if only. After you've shot Swansea 3 times, we get another amazing cutscene.
I have something to say. So shut the fuck up and listen. I spent 13 years half cut up to my eyeballs. Drunk, to put it mildly. Then suddenly I saw it. A streetlight shining in my face. 500 gigawatts of the power of God. A vision of my bloated body found in some ditch. Scared me straight. So I got a collared shirt, mortgage, and a credit card. All the things that make a good man. I hoped I could raise my children to be better than their own man. I wanted to believe I was never one setback away from my worst self. But the truth is, discipline, drive, routine, the endless fucking desperation to get shit done. A loving wife, great kids, sobriety. I'm telling you. Accomplishments I'd been chasing all my life. Never felt as good as I expected when I crossed the finish line. So now that we're at the end, taking inventory, those nights spinning out of my head, sinking into the sofa, broken glass in my palms, bleeding dry, the funniest thing ever. Old dogs laughing and snarling on the waterbed floor, mocking the moon for daring to show its face. All the nausea and wreckage and vomit and ugly cruelty. The only problem in the world, an empty bottle. Those were the best days of my life. Yeah. Those were the best days of my life. I got nothing to hide, ready to face the music. I can see myself for what I am. But you? A cowardly, selfish motherfucker, and you can't even see it. I should have been able to protect the kid. If I could have done one thing right, I wish it had been to give him one small chance off this goddamned rock. Swansea, we're going to fix everything. We're going to make it. Fuck you.
We don't actually see Jimmy shoot Swansea, which is a relief. We head out to the main hallway, which seems to never end. That is, until we reach this part and oh! Hey, what are you doing down there, Curly? As we keep walking, the walls become covered in Curly's one good eye, watching us closely, judging us. Then in the blink of an eye, we are inside of an esophagus. We walk through this disgusting terrain until we reach the exit and turn back to see we came out of Curly's mouth. Across from us is Curly sat rigged up to a puzzle with a TV across from him. When you sit down and watch the TV, you see the cartoon Mother Goose's Birthday playing. As the cake is placed on the table, the screen freezes. When you click on the screen, it asks you to take Curly's leg. When you click on that, a message flashes on the TV. Feast. It cuts to a video of some children eating dinner before you break away and have to figure out the puzzle. The puzzle is turning the valves corresponding to the pieces of Curly's stomach on the TV before you feed him a piece of his own leg. If you get this wrong, he'll vomit all over himself, but we don't have to talk about that. Get it right, and he will have eaten his own flesh. When you turn back, the TV will read, "Help me." As you approach the TV, you will see Jimmy walking in space towards Curly, who is on fire.
I want to go home. We are home. Why don't you finish what you started? Don't worry. If anyone ever finds us, I'll still be playing the villain. You'll be the better man in the end, like you wanted. I could have stopped it. I'm taking responsibility. No. We could both be heroes. We're a team. Just you and me like we used to be. What happened was an accident. We were trapped. I made a mistake, alright? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Curly.
The game glitches again, and we approach a... Well, I don't want to say what that is. You should be able to figure it out. We have to pick up the ultrasound device on the table and run it over this fleshy mass. As we do that, we'll find 3 horse fetuses, and they will slowly disappear until the mass shakes and out pops a polycenipede. The next section, we have to hide from the centipede and not let it touch us.
Don't know where the frick it went. God, it's really hard to hide from your responsibilities, huh? Ah! Ah! I don't want to be a dad. I don't want to be a dad. I don't want to be a dad. Ah! Ah! Crap!
Once we've avoided it for some time, we are back in the hallways of the ship. As we walk forward, we see all of the employee ID cards, but if you look on the walls, the only one obscured is Anya's, symbolizing how Jimmy doesn't even acknowledge Anya's existence. We walk up a set of stairs as bottles of mouthwash fall down past us, until we get to a mountain of mouthwash and we see Polly there waiting for us.
Pony Express is dead. And so are you. Shut up. Curly tried his best. I did too, but he's the better man. I see that now. We can both still make it. I'll take care of him. I'm taking responsibility. Curly. Captain. I'm so sorry. Yes. Yes, I do. I've messed up. But I can still make this right. Our worst moments don't make us...
Here we are at the grand finale, 0 hours before judgment. The entire crew is dead. Curly watches us from the table where we mutilated him. We pick him up and carry him to the utility room, placing him in the cryopod. The game ends from Curly's point of view as Jimmy claims that he saved everyone. He fixed the solution and now Curly will get to live on and be the captain he used to be, at least in Jimmy's mind. Then Jimmy walks off camera and we hear a gunshot signifying the end of our main antagonist. For a moment, we sit in silence before the cryopod kicks on and the credits roll, finally ending the psychological nightmare that is mouthwashing. let's TLDR that in case you zoned out or you just skip that part altogether because you already know that. So, the overarching plot of Mouthwashing is that a crew is in space. It is a crew of 4 men and 1 woman, and one of those men decides that he has jurisdiction over the one woman's body. He decides to take advantage of this woman on the ship, and it is obviously a problem because they are going to be on the ship for a year together. While the woman Anya is coping with what happened to her, she realizes that she is pregnant. And when she realizes that she's pregnant, she informs the captain. And the captain, who is also friends with Jimmy, the co-pilot, wants to try and fix the situation. But Jimmy decides, nah, that ain't gonna work for me, so I'm gonna just crash the ship and we're just gonna get the fuck out of here. Sorry, excuse my language. And when he does that, Curly takes on the brunt of the crash and unknowingly takes on the responsibility of the crash from Jimmy, because Jimmy basically got off scot free. Nobody knows. Curly can't speak. He's literally just a hunk of burnt flesh, so he can't speak and he can't say, actually, no, it was Jimmy. So the rest of the crew believes that it is Curly who purposely crashed the ship. This is after they found out that they were getting laid off. This is after they found out that they were getting laid off and that Pony Express was pretty much going under and that this was going to be the last haul that they were ever doing and they were all losing their jobs. So the stress of, a woman being pregnant on the ship and getting laid off from the Pony Express, the whole crew had to go down in Jimmy's mind. After that happens, they all decide that they want to open the cargo hold to see if they can find something of value within the cargo hold to utilize. And unfortunately, they find absolutely nothing but mouthwash. Tons and tons of mouthwash, which I learned from this game that mouthwash has a lot of alcohol in it. It has more alcohol than some alcoholic, like some spirits that you would get. I can't imagine because obviously I use mouthwash. If you saw the beginning of this skit, obviously I use mouthwash, so I can't imagine swallowing that. It doesn't taste very good, but I guess, like I said, desperate times call for desperate measures. Um, so the crew decides to cope with the hopelessness of the situation by drinking mouthwash. Eventually, though, it gets to a point where it is a little bit too much. Anya is realizing that she is about to be very pregnant and decides that she's going to take matters into her own hands. She locks herself in the medical room and she, like I said, makes a permanent decision. While she's locked in the medical room, Jimmy and Daisuke go into a panic. Jimmy probably because he doesn't want anyone to find out what he did to Anya, and Daisuke because he genuinely cares about Anya and he's concerned about her well-being. He's a good boy. We love to see it. Um, Jimmy convinces Daisuke not only to assist him in drugging their coworker, but in also climbing into a dangerous collapsed vent, which ends up electrocuting and cutting him up enough that he would succumb to major injuries. When they get him out of the vent, of course, the last thing Daisuke really lucidly sees is his coworker and friend deceased on the floor. And poor Curly had to witness what Anya did firsthand because obviously he can't get up and leave. He doesn't have any legs. So he had to witness what happened. And then Daisuke is retrieved by Swansea and Jimmy. Daisuke is then unceremoniously killed by Swansea because of his suffering. And then Jimmy and Swansea kind of duke it out a bit. And Jimmy ends up coming on top because he has, Swansea bought an axe to a gunfight. That's all I can say. But um, Jimmy ends up besting him. Then he kind of loses it a little bit. He decides to practice some people eating, for lack of a better term, and then in the end he decides that it would make more sense for him to delete himself and put Curly in the cryopod. But would it really be better for Curly to be in a cryopod for 20 years in the condition that Curly's in? I mean, you saw what Curly looked like. Do you think he is going to have any quality of life if he is discovered in the vacuum of space within those 20 years? Probably not. So at the end of the day, Jimmy just prolonged his suffering. So Jimmy basically killed an entire crew of people, and yeah, that's the whole plot of Mouthwashing. Is playing as one of the most reprehensible video game characters I've ever seen, that you have to play as. So let's talk about some of these characters. I'm going to try to keep them brief, but let's talk about some of these characters a little bit. Starting with Daisuke and Swansea, we're going to put them together because to me, they are supporting characters. They're not bad characters. I enjoy both Daisuke and Swansea, especially Daisuke. Daisuke's my son. I love him. Anyways, um, but Daisuke and Swansea are kind of two sides of the same coin and kind of very similar in nature in the sense of what Daisuke is what Swansea wishes he still was, and Swansea is what Daisuke wishes he could be. Let's look at them individually, starting with Swansea. Swansea is an older man who has very clearly been a blue collar worker his entire life. As we see in the game, he did suffer from an alcohol addiction that plagued him for most of his life until he got scared straight and he decided to follow everything that you're supposed to do when you like are a human, I guess, in America. He decided to get a job, he decided to get himself a wife and kids and do all the things that is expected of him, and he never quite felt fulfilled. He started to become older and bitter and, more and angrier at life, which tends to happen to a lot of people. It could very well be that this isn't really what Swansea wants to be doing. I'm not, I mean, it's obviously not really what he wants to be doing because he talks about how the best days of his life are when he was drunk. But it's also of the fact that maybe he feels like he wasted some of his youth and that he didn't figure out what he wanted to do when he was younger. So he just partied, and that's all he has to hold on to is those memories of partying with his friends. um, it's really sad. And I think he looks at Daisuke as a representation of what could be. Not necessarily what he could be, but what could be. He's got potential. He may not be the brightest bulb in the bunch, and he may not be a great mechanic, but he's a good kid with a good heart. Something that Swansea admires. And maybe he doesn't say he admires it, but it's obvious he admires it in the way that he carries himself when he handles Daisuke. On the flip side of that, Daisuke is a very naive, sweet kid, probably a bit of a slacker, probably a bit of a gamer nerd, probably grew up in high school and like didn't have very many friends and was just like playing video games all the time. And his parents probably saw that he lacked ambition, he lacked direction, and they decided, hey, let's send him to space. I guess like the military wouldn't take him, so they're like, let's just ship my kid to space. Um, that's an L for his parents, personally, in my opinion. Like, why are you sending your kid to space? Come on now. Like, come on now. Because he probably had to go through so much just to get that internship. Probably put in one of those spinning things, yeah. No thanks. Um, but Daisuke is absolutely, like the epitome of what it's like to be young. He's a little bit naive. He's a little bit, a little bit of a go-getter, but he's also like very, there's certain things that he says within the game, like when he mentions something about like them running out of toilet paper, or when he talks about being on the beach with a hot babe, or when he mentions that he had snuck some sweetener and hid it in his stuff. Maybe, not really, maybe, possibly, it possibly could have been him. Maybe. um and it's stuff like that that kind of reminds you that Daisuke is really just a kid. I mean, there's no clear ages for any of the characters, but actually today when I was on the Mouthwashing subreddit, a lot of people do theorize that he's probably like 18 or 19. Like he's young. He's a young kid. And so it makes it even more tragic to see how his life was cut short by an older person who he trusted and an older person that he admired. But even more so, that his life was snuffed out by somebody that I think he had a very strong bond with. And maybe they didn't see eye to eye because they had different ways of doing things. But it's clear that he wanted to be more like Swansea. He wanted to have ambition. He wanted to be a go-getter. He wanted to be productive. Whereas Swansea probably looked at Daisuke and goes, yeah, that's how you should be. You should be this youthful, fun kid enjoying your life, going out and doing things, making mistakes and screwing up, not screwing up in a way that gets you stranded in space and killed by an axe, but, screwing up by, like, I don't know, texting your ex, like, in the middle of the night when you're drunk, or, like, forgetting your keys when you go home, when you like are getting ready to leave and you're at your car going, oh, where the heck are my keys, like, or screwing up by, like, I don't know, just partying too hard the night before you have a test and then having a test the next day and you're hungover. Like, those are the types of things I think that Swansea was thinking when he looked at Daisuke, was that this is a good kid who has a chance, has the ability to make something of himself, and he doesn't have to do what I'm doing. He doesn't have to force himself to be a blue collar worker. He doesn't have to lower himself to my standards. And I love their dynamic in that sense, because these two characters are sort of like mirrors of each other. Like, Swansea, like Daisuke is a mirror of what Swansea wishes he still had: the youth, the carefree behavior, the lack of obligations, the freedom to do whatever he wants and not feeling so tied down. And Swansea represents to Daisuke somebody who's got it figured out, somebody who's smart, somebody who's mature, somebody who has, respect from people and works hard and isn't a slacker. And people view him as somebody who is worthy of, you know, his title. So when it comes to Swansea and Daisuke, these two characters, they might be supporting characters, but in my opinion, their support is so important, because they are a very good reflection of what it means to live your life with regrets, whether it's regrets for what you're not doing to support your future, in the case of somebody like Daisuke, or regrets of what you've left behind in your past, in the case of someone like Swansea. So Daisuke and Swansea are very fascinating characters to me in that respect. Okay, so you probably thought that I was going to save this next person for last, but we're not saving this next person for last. The reason why is because I want to save somebody specific for last. You'll figure it out when I get to the second to last person. But next, we are going to talk about Captain Curly. Now, I want to make it abundantly clear, because I know how a lot of people feel about Curly. This is not a Curly hate channel. I don't hate Curly. There are things that Curly did that I feel he let down his crew, but at the same time, there's also things within the game that make me wonder if there was a reasoning for him to not take certain actions, aside from just, hey, Jimmy's my friend. But there's also the other caveat to it. And I'm going to play the devil's advocate here, and I know you guys aren't going to like it, but let's not get ahead of ourselves and let's talk about Curly. Curly, in my opinion, he is the well-meaning but incredibly misguided captain. He makes a very grave mistakes. He makes a couple of grave mistakes, actually, and he does not protect his crew, but especially Anya. Those are very, very bad things that Curly did. However, it does not warrant the level of hate this character gets from the fandom, because people will literally sit here and do entire hour-long videos on how much they hate Curly and how Curly is not a good person because he didn't just, like, round Jimmy up and give him the 1-2. And while I agree that he should have, taken some form of action, there are some things to consider on why he might not have taken action. We're going to start with the things that are not within his control necessarily, and then I'll talk about the devil's advocate part I'm about to play. So, I watched the video. I cannot remember the name of the creator. If I happen to find their video while I'm editing this, I will leave the link in the description and I'll put the name of it down here. But if not, I'm sorry. But I watched a video where somebody actually broke down a lot of the policies of the Pony Express that you can gauge from the posters and some of the other material in this game. And I know I read through the posters while I was doing the story breakdown, but I think it's important to highlight the crew gets punished for any actions that even one member does. So that means what Jimmy did to Anya, the entire crew would go down for that action. Even though it was Jimmy's action, the entire crew would be penalized. And I think a lot of you mouthwashing fans do not realize that. Curly could not just throw Jimmy from the ship and like eject him into the vacuums of space, as much as we would like to see that. Everyone's jobs were on the line. Everyone's job. And I know. Like, oh, well, the Pony Express was going under. Once you realize the Pony Express was going under, that should have been like, the whole, like, that should have been it. But you have to understand also, after he went to go and confront Jimmy about Anya's pregnancy, Jimmy manipulated him. He spun it around and manipulated him super easily and played to the fears that Curly has about potentially, not being able to jump ship and be in a different career. Remember the conversation? I know I didn't really go back to it, but remember the conversation they had after Curly did Jimmy's psyche val, where Curly mentioned that he feels like he's on the wrong ladder altogether. Curly wants to get away from doing what he's doing. Maybe not doing any space freighter stuff. Maybe he wants to go and, I don't know, be an accountant. We don't know what Curly actually wanted to do, but he wanted to do something different. And as you can tell, Jimmy was jealous of him because Jimmy was like, oh, you've reached the highest rung on your ladder, and now you're wondering if you're on the wrong ladder altogether. While meanwhile, I'm still climbing my way from the bottom to the top. And it's like, yeah, he got to the highest position he could get in the career, and he realized he might be in the wrong career. A lot of people do that. And that's not a fault of Curly's, But the whole thing was, Jimmy knew that. Jimmy knew that Curly was hoping that his career, he could make this career change. He could be something different. And what ended up happening was that Jimmy manipulated that, just the same way he manipulated Daisuke by being like, yeah, the crew will be proud of you if you climb into that vent. Think about how much everybody will be so happy. Swansea will be proud of you. Like, it's going to be so great if you go into that vent and you, like, sacrifice yourself for the entire crew. Like, he is manipulative. So he played in that whole entire scene when he's like, what do you think is going to happen when we get back to Earth and they realize what I did? Yeah, I did what I did, but it was your responsibility to stop me. Your responsibility to make sure I wasn't doing that type of stuff to the crew. Your responsibility to make sure that Anya was protected. So who's going to go down for this? It's not just going to be me. It's also going to be you. Or I could crash this entire ship and no one ever has to know what I did. And Curly's mistake here, which I will give everyone this criticism, was in that moment when he realized that Jimmy said, I'll take care of it, he should not have let Jimmy leave the room. Yes, he might not have known that Jimmy was going to go crash the entire ship, but he should not have let Jimmy leave the room. He should have informed Daisuke and Swansea of what was going on and let them get Jimmy into a room alone and find a way. I mean, there's no prison on this ship. There's no place to hold somebody who commits a crime like this on the ship. A lot of you guys have way too high of expectations for Curly in this instance. What is he supposed to do? They are on a ship in the middle of space, and if he decides to take any drastic action, they all lose their pay. They were still going to get paid for that job. So they all lose their pay. Now, yes, morally, we are all going to sit here and say the right thing to do is just take the guy out regardless. Give him a little in the face a couple of times. Chain him to the nearest table. And yes, morally, that is the right thing to do. I'm not going to sit here and say that y'all are wrong for feeling that way. But if you were in that position where everyone's livelihoods and existence depended on the actions you took, you really have to stop and think, would you really just resort to vigilante justice? Or would you really have to stop and think about what's the right thing to do here that's not going to hurt everyone in the process of doing this? And here's where I'm going to play the devil's advocate, because now let's pause for a second. I don't agree with this mentality, but we have to understand the significance of Curly's actions. It's very clear that Curly and Jimmy have a relationship. Now, we obviously don't know how close they are, but they're close enough that Curly gave Pony Express the recommendation to hire Jimmy. they're close enough that Curly vouched for Jimmy, and they're close enough that Curly knows of whatever struggle Jimmy had while he was on Earth. It's very common that when people are informed of a horrible thing that somebody they care about or they're friends with, they're in a relationship with, whatever, family, whatever, when they're informed that they've committed a horrible crime, it is very common that they will oftentimes not believe it. This doesn't make it okay. This doesn't make it okay. This isn't me saying, oh, Curly's actions are totally justified because they were friends. No. This is me saying that that's the point. The part that's making you angry, that's the point. He cannot see that his friend did this action because in his mind, Jimmy is not capable of doing that. The whole dead pixel scene exists for a reason. Anya sees this dead pixel on the nighttime window screen. Curly cannot find it. He says it's because he always looks at the bigger picture, and she says in the back of my mind it's always there. In the back of her mind, she knows what Jimmy is capable of. It's always there. Curly cannot see it. He cannot see it because he's too busy looking at the outside. So he sees Jimmy. Jimmy's his friend. Jimmy's cool. Jimmy's chill. Yeah, he's had some rough times, and who knows what those rough times were. Those rough times could have been something like he just couldn't get a job. Like, we don't know if Jimmy has done this, or at least has been caught doing this. We don't know if Curly knows he's ever done this before, if he has done this before. We only know what we see in this game. But for all we know, whatever Jimmy's struggles were on Earth may not have even been to the level of what he did to Anya. So for Curly, this could be the first time he is hearing, my friend did this horrible, horrible thing to a person I'm responsible for taking care of. And it might take somebody a little while longer to get to that realization. The moment I think it hit him was when he realized Jimmy activated the ship to crash. That's when he realized just how dangerous and how volatile Jimmy was. Why? Because Jimmy manipulated the crap out of him in that little back and forth outside of the cockpit. Again, I'm not saying that Curly is perfect, and I'm not saying that this absolves him of his inaction and also the fact that he refused to see how bad Jimmy really was. But I'm saying that some of y'all really hate this character almost as much as you hate Jimmy. You treat Curly like he is Jimmy, like he did the actions himself. And I think it's a little bit unfair because to me, I see Curly as a really tragic example of what people go through in real life when they find out that somebody they care about is capable of committing something, doing an act that's so heinous and so horrible. It's really hard for a lot of people to contend with that. I always go back to Ted Bundy's mom when the police told her, and I don't know the exact words she said, but when the police told her about her son's crimes after he was finally apprehended, and I think she asked the police if they would like some pie or some ice cream or something. Like, she didn't want to process it. She didn't want to process it. She was just like, oh, would you like some pie? Or I don't know if it was pie or if it was ice cream. I really don't know. But I just remember like hearing that story and just thinking, yeah, I mean, we all sit here and we're like, nah, man, if I found out my boy was doing this to girls, man, I would, but like, would you really? Would you really? Like, stop and really think about it. If you found out your best friend in the entire world committed a crime and you didn't see it happen, but you're hearing about this horrible, heinous thing that they did, would you really just drop them at the drop of a hat? For a lot of people, the answer is no. And like, I can't say myself that the answer is no. I try not to align myself with people that are capable of doing things like that, but at the same time, you don't ever really know. And if I were to find out somebody that I was really, really close to, one of my best friends right now, like I'm thinking about my best friends in my head, if I were to find out that they did that to somebody, it would be really hard for me to believe it because in the back of my mind, those people are not capable of that. We don't know Jimmy outside of the lens of the game Mouthwashing. We don't know what he was like on Earth. We don't know the relationship him and Curly had. we don't know if Jimmy actually came off as a genuinely kind person. He's incredibly manipulative and incredibly narcissistic. So it's possible that Curly had never seen this type of behavior from Jimmy, and that when Anya told him what happened, it was hard for him to believe. Again, I'm not saying that it absolves him of his inaction, but I'm saying it does give us a little bit more of a little bit more insight to who Curly is, and it gives us a little bit more insight to the situation, and it kind of makes some of y'all look like clowns for sitting here talking about this man like he's the one that did it to Anya. Because some of y'all really be talking about him like he's the one that did it to Anya. He didn't do it to Anya. Like, listen, hey, you're well within your rights to love or hate whatever character you want to love or hate. And I know that there's a lot of people that don't like Curly. I don't hate Curly for what he did. In fact, and a lot of ways I understand why he did not take the actions that he could have taken, because his hands were tied in a lot of places. And it breaks my heart because it is, again, another example of corporate greed. And he basically was put in a position where when something like this, I mean, the company didn't even think, what if something like this happened? She's the only woman on a ship full of men. What did they think was going to happen? Like, realistically, what did they think was going to happen? So, and I think maybe this is something Curly didn't even consider. Maybe because it seems like Anya's been on trips with him before, maybe he didn't even consider that someone would do this to her. So, Curly deserves a little bit of grace, especially because he's currently sitting in a cryopod and he is a husk of who he once was, and he will have no quality of life. I think he's gotten enough punishment. And he's a fictional character, so who cares? But yeah, no, Curly is not, in my opinion, he's not worth all the hate that y'all are giving to Curly. You could be taking it and giving it to the next character. All right, I just want to get this man out the way. I had to drink some water. My throat's getting dry. I want to get this man out the way. I don't like thinking about him. This man haunts my nightmares. Jimmy. Jimmy. I have to say that it is absolutely diabolical for Wrong Organ to create one of the most reprehensible antagonists I've ever seen in a video game, and then have you play as him. Absolutely villain behavior, Wrong Organ. Villain behavior. There were a lot of times when I was playing the game that, like, because it's different when you're watching it. Like, I watched, like I said, I watched Berlizzi, I watched Corey Kenshin, um, I watched them play this game before I actually played it myself. Watching them play it and then sitting behind your computer and playing it yourself are two vastly different experiences, two vastly different worlds. It was hard for me at certain parts to make the choices I had to make. Not even make the choice, I didn't even have choices to do the things I had to do. And to play as a character who violated a woman, especially being a woman, to play as a character who violated a woman, it really, and I'm not saying that because women don't do stuff like that. I'm just saying that because coming from that standpoint, being somebody who unfortunately knows what it feels like, um, to be violated, just in general, just in as in being in like the existence of a woman, it was really hard to play as Jimmy. It was really hard. And most of the time when you play a game and you're playing as a character, you're rooting for that character. You're rooting for that character. You want to see how the character story plays out. You want to see them get to the end of the game. I could not wait for this man to die. I'm gonna be so for real with you. I could not wait for him to die. The longer I played this game, the more I just wanted him gone. And I knew it was coming, but the more I just wanted him gone. Jimmy is a master manipulator. I don't like throwing around the word narcissist because it is a medical diagnosis, but he fits the bill. He is diabolical. He is monstrous in a way that I don't even think there are video game villains I would love to meet Mr. X in real life from Resident Evil 2. I'm totally fine. Jack Baker from Resident Evil 7, even though he scares the crap out of me, he can come up to me and say, "Welcome to the family, son." And I would take that any day than being locked in a room for even 5 seconds with Jimmy from Mouthwashing. This man is reprehensible, in my opinion. And in a lot of ways, I hate the character, but I love the story. Like, I love the story. I love the fact that they flipped it on its head and you're playing as the monster. You're playing as the villain. And you're not the typical monster. You're not the monster that you expect to encounter in a video game. You're not the creepy crawly ghost or the slimy, wormy monster. You're a human being, a regular guy with a regular job, doing regular things, who just happens to know what to say to people. I mean, he's charming. I don't personally think the character model for Jimmy is attractive, but I do believe that if Jimmy were a real person, he'd probably be somewhat attractive. Maybe not like, super duper hot, but like he would definitely be like a Patrick Bateman. Like he would be somebody that definitely takes good care of himself, that looks, you know, relatively unassuming, and you would think, "Oh, he seems like a nice guy," and he's not a nice guy. Not a nice guy at all. He is the antithesis of like every man in the world. I mean he's not the antithesis, sorry. He's like a description of a lot of men in this world. Not every man, but a lot of men in this world. He is just a very, very cruel person. The way he relentlessly mocks Anya throughout the entire game and then doesn't even give a crap about her. A lot of people complain that after Anya's death, we don't really have a presence from her throughout the rest of the game. And like that bothers them because they wanted to see Jimmy, haunted more by what happened to Anya. But personally, just my opinion, that's completely on brand for Jimmy. Completely on brand for Jimmy. I think if Anya was haunting him more, that would prove that he cared about her. He doesn't care about Anya. He doesn't give a crap about Anya. Henceforth, why at the one part towards the end of the game, when you're walking through the hallway of ID cards, her ID card is the only one you can't see full on. It's covered by everyone else's. He cares about Daisuke. He cares about Swansea. He cares a lot about Curly. He doesn't give a damn about Anya. And I think that if Anya had had more of a haunting presence for him, yes, as a woman who hates Jimmy, that would have been a lot more satisfying, of course, to see Anya haunting him and to see her plaguing him a little bit more, but it would have been completely out of character for Jimmy because he doesn't care about her. The reason why I say this is because when you first go into the medical room after Daisuke is pulled from the vent and that whole left side of the medical room is distorted, he doesn't want to acknowledge what she did to herself. He doesn't want to acknowledge what he drove her to do with his actions. He doesn't want to acknowledge how awful he's been to her all over the whole overarching like theme of the game. He doesn't want to acknowledge it. And in my opinion, that is purposeful. She is purposefully, I saw a video one time where they said that she's purposefully bland. And yeah, she's purposely bland, but I don't think she's purposely bland because they didn't want to put any effort into a female character. She's purposely bland because Jimmy doesn't care about her. We're seeing everything from Jimmy's perspective. He doesn't care about her. When we do see her from Curly's perspective, she seems a little bit more human. She seems to have a little bit more of a personality. But when we see her from Jimmy's perspective, she doesn't really have that much of a personality. She just sort of exists to him. He doesn't care about her. And I think, in my opinion, that is masterful writing because the character he caused the most harm is so, like, devoid of any substance that us as players care. We fill in the blanks more for her than the game ever could. And it's not, in my opinion, for lack of wanting to give Anya any substance or give Anya, like, characterization, it's simply because Jimmy doesn't care. Jimmy doesn't care, and why should we? Why should we care? Only difference is I do care what happened to Anya. I do care. That's why I saved her for last. I do care. So, Jimmy, goodbye. I don't want to talk about you anymore, Jimmy. Goodbye. But Anya, we're gonna talk about Anya now. Because first of all, obviously I'm dressed up as Anya. I could have came on here dressed up as like Daisuke. I could have came on here dressed up as Swansea. I could have came on here dressed up as Curly with like the full like bandage wrap and like the scrub gown. Yeah, I could have came on here like that, but I chose Anya. Now I mostly chose Anya because I do love Anya. She's my favorite character. And yeah, I relate a little too hard to Anya because of the need to placate people. But let's talk about Anya. Let's talk about how her story is super tragic. And in my opinion, even though it's not handled well, it's for a reason. So Anya's character is she's clearly the nurse on the ship, and she is sort of just there. Like she's sort of just there. Like I said before, she is purposefully bland. She doesn't really have much of a personality. She doesn't really have much that stands out about her. She's just kind of there, just kind of there. Um, but that's not because to me that's not because Wrong Organ just didn't want to like put effort into a female character. It's really because we're viewing this game through the lens of Jimmy. And in the case of Anya, we only know her from her trauma. She is a character who is victimized from the moment that we get to meet her. She shows her emotions, she wears her heart on her sleeve. She's scared of what's going to happen to her after the Pony Express goes under. She's scared of what's going to happen to her with Jimmy being on the ship. She doesn't really know how she's going to cope with motherhood, having a baby, and especially in this way. I mean, she told Jimmy and he just walked away and then decided to kill everybody, by crashing the ship. I would love to know what goes on in her head. I would love to know more about her as a person. It makes me very, very sad that as a fan, I have to fill in the gaps only because of the fact that I think that she is such a fascinating character. Because she, as somebody pointed out, she she applied for medical school 8 times and didn't get in. However, she managed to keep Curly alive for four 4 months after they crashed. I believe it's 4 months. Yeah, 4 months after she kept Curly alive for 4 months after the ship crashed. And you can see what state Curly was in. She kept him alive. So that scared me. Sorry, my cat just like walked. Hi, cat. If I say hi, Sherry, you can see her tail. Um, yeah, clearly she was intelligent enough to keep Curly alive. So she's not entirely useless. And in fact, I think she's probably a lot more useful than the crew, especially Jimmy, wants to believe. Um, she seems to be incredibly kind. She has a great relationship with Curly for the most part. They seem to be incredibly friendly with one another. And it just really breaks my heart that we didn't get to see more of her story. Obviously, I can tell why that is, but it really, really sucks that she didn't get more of a storyline. So Anya deserved a lot better. She deserved a lot better than what she got with Jimmy. And I'm sorry, my cat just caught me off guard because I don't know what she's doing. She's fascinated. Oh, she's fascinated with some plastic that's on my. It's a thing of envelopes. It's on my little ottoman here. Is that to the camera? Hi, baby. She's very cute. She's very cute. She stares off of me. My little void cat. Anyways, I'm leaving that in. You guys can see my cat. She's cute. Um, but yeah, Anya definitely deserved better. And, it is really sad what happened to her overall. And like I said, seeing how she met her end really does break my heart. Every time I see that scene, it just makes my stomach drop. So, Anya, you will be greatly missed. All right, so real quick before we wrap this video up, because it's already been a long yap session, as always, we're back to yapping on this channel. Um, what are my feelings on mouthwashing? Because obviously, I wanted to do this video for a reason. This is one of the most impactful, yet sad and heartbreaking video games I've ever played. Horror games are not supposed to make me cry. They're not supposed to make me feel. Someone was detected at the front door. The guy came to get our trash. All right. Anyways, they're not supposed to make me feel sadness. They're not supposed to make me cry. They're supposed to scare me. And this game did scare me. Well, let's be honest. This game did scare me in certain parts of it. First of all, the ambience in this game is really intense. Um, a lot of the times it's just quiet and it's just footsteps. And then some of the music makes me feel like my brain is turning into spaghetti. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how my brain feels when I hear some of the music in this game. It just makes my brain feel like it's unraveling. Um, and it's very creepy. It's very creepy. I will say the scariest part of the game for me is the poly chase, the poly centipede chase. I was full on screaming during that boss battle, I guess you can call it. I was full on screaming during that. It's scary because it's such tight corners, and then like occasionally the centipede would just be peeking around the corner, just like stopped, and you turn and you only have like a few seconds to haul it, and Jimmy can't run that fast. Jimmy can't run that fast. But you know what? It's kind of good because technically the Polly like represents the unborn child, so maybe it's okay that he doesn't run from his responsibilities for once. I don't know, he doesn't want to take responsibility. So another thing that I really loved about this game was just the motif of taking responsibility for your own actions and the things that you do to people that can hurt them. I think over the years, people are starting to understand a little bit more about what true accountability looks like, and how bad most people are at it. In the case of somebody like Jimmy, most people tend to just walk away from their accountability. They don't even want to acknowledge what they might have done wrong. They don't want to do that because it's too much work. Um but I think a lot more people are learning how to be accountable and how to take responsibility for their actions. In the case of this game, it would have been a lot better if Curly had stepped up. I will admit that it would have been a lot better if Curly had stepped up, but I don't think it would have undone the actions. There's not really much that he could have done other than talk to Jimmy. I mean, they're in the vacuum of space. Where are they going to put him? There's no prison on the ship. The only two places that have locks are the medical room, which is where Anya works, and the cockpit, where obviously he did the most damage he could think of. Um, I don't really think there was anything that Curly could have done other than what he tried to do. Um, but maybe next time don't recommend your friends for jobs if you don't know. Vet them first. Okay. Another thing I think is great about this game is, like I said before, the fact that this game flips it on its head and has you play as the antagonist for the entire game, and you can't really change the outcome of things. You can't really get a good ending for Jimmy, or any of the crew. The best ending isn't even canon. I mean, the best ending is when Swansea hits him with the axe like several times, 10 times, yeah, 10 times. Um, that's the best ending of the whole game. Is when Swansea hits him with the axe. Overall, this game is just a really masterful version of storytelling. I love super story based games. Like I talked about in my one video where I talked about I loved Until Dawn. I did love Detroit Become Human, just like so sue me, okay? I loved Detroit Become Human. I love, I like the Telltale Walking Dead games. Those were fantastic. I love super story based games. And one of my biggest issues with like horror games is that they rely so much on the scare, but not so much on the story. And the story is super important on how you get immersed in the gameplay. And the only thing I will say is like this game wasn't traditionally scary. It wasn't traditionally scary. It wasn't the kind of game that had a ton of jump scares or a ton of gore and violence and this and that and the other. It was more scary in the sense of I've met people like Jimmy. I've been around people like Jimmy. I've been friends with people like Jimmy. I've worked with people like Jimmy. And these are people that would go to any lengths to protect themselves, but they could give a dip left less about anybody else. Um, that was more the scary part of it than the actual gameplay. So yeah, it is definitely one of the best games I've played in a long time. I really like it. I really enjoy it. I hope we see more games from Raw Organ. I really do. I hope we see more games that are super story based like this. This was an awesome playthrough. Very tough to get through it twice. I don't know how I did it. Uh, by sheer force of will. But sorry that my footage for that got screwed up and it's not the best gameplay. Hopefully my next gameplay will be better. Anyways, we're gonna take it on home now because as you could probably tell, I am up past my bedtime and my throat is starting to actually get sore from talking so much. Yay. So, yeah, that is it for me. Thank you guys so much for joining me today on this journey through my first ever horror game review on this channel. I'm so excited to do other horror games in the future. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Did you play this game? Do you like this game? Do you hate this game? Do you agree with my feelings towards this game? Are you interested in playing this game? You can go play it. It's on Steam. You can go purchase it. It is a good game. Go support Wrong Organ. We should support indie developers because they need all the support they can get in this day and age. You can like and subscribe and I don't know, just like and subscribe and definitely comment because that lets me know that you liked what you just watched. Or not, if you comment and you say you didn't like it. That's fine too. That's cool. I understand. Socials. I am bad at social media. I will always be bad at social media because I don't like social media, but I am on social media. I'm at Creepy Critiques on pretty much everything. TikTok exists still, so I'm technically still there. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Instagram. I am not on Threads anymore. I did get rid of my Threads account, so yeah, there's that. But yeah, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, and I'm on Blue Sky. So you can always hit me up there if you'd like to. I will be back, hopefully feeling a lot better next. I don't know if this video is going to be out this week. It might not be out this week, let's be honest. Possibly next week, maybe the week after, hopefully next week, fingers crossed. I'll be back. We got a TV show to talk about. TV show that just came back that I'm super excited about, but I haven't watched any of the new season yet. We're just going to talk about season 1. So, I'm really excited about that. We're going to talk about that in my next video. And then I have another gameplay for you guys coming up. But I got to work on that first. I got to make sure I get it perfect. So, I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited to get more horror games on this channel. And I know we have some HHN speculation stuff to talk about. I am really behind on a lot of the HHN speculation. But don't worry. We're going to talk about it. And yeah. I'm excited. I do have a website. Go check out the website. I'm going to start posting on there again. It's been crazy because, like I said, life has been lifing, and also I've been sick. So, yeah, I'm gonna start posting on there again, and I'm gonna post some articles, some smaller articles, and I will be getting on some more movie reviews. There's some movies I want to talk about. So, yeah, keep an eye on this channel. Like I said, like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one with another creepy critique.